This will be a day long remembered. Now I am the master.
Welcome to another episode of Legends and Theories, and welcome to a video for all those people who are in back to school right now. This is a video fully intended for you when you're thinking about all those terrible books you're probably going to be reading this year. And it's to say that there's actually a chance that you could get something decent. I'm going to go through 8 of the best books I actually got to read. They're spread throughout different years. I'll be talking about mainly middle school ones where got a few more decent ones in there, but also a few mentions from high school and one really good one I had in college. I am, of course, still being in education, so I may have more books that I could recommend in the future, but at this point, these are 8 of the best ones. And yeah, there's probably been like over 100 books I've had to read for school, and I really was only able to get 8. So that is saying something. But there is one book I don't know really what it was a play. I can't remember what its name was. I remember it was fun. Not really the greatest thing ever, but that's gonna be honorable number 9 because all I remember about it was like something about a like two sons that were criminals and something about their mother. She might have died or something, but I remember like nothing about it. I just remember it was enjoyable enough, and we read it out loud in my junior year of high school. So which was honestly my best year of reading books where every book I read is making it on there with this play being an honorable mention because I don't remember its name. None of these books are in a particular order, they're just to say stuff that I enjoyed and will be instead separated by age range of when I read it, but also generally if I think you should be reading it at that age range. Also, honorable mention to all those books that I got to read for choose your own book assignments. I remember the only one I remember doing during middle school was Fellowship of the Ring. But then I remember it was I think it was senior year of high school, we had a lesson assignment where we got a period like once a week in one of my classes to just read for like a month. While most people only finished like one book, I finished like the Thrawn trilogy and like 3 or 4 other books. So since all these are books of my choice, I will not be counting them. But I'll be I'll mention for those. There's some books that I got to choose from, and there are books I definitely enjoyed from that. And the first one, this was from 6th grade, which was The Phantom Tollbooth. Don't remember too much about this one. Also, I don't really intend to ever read this again. It was definitely something for someone at that age range. So if you're in, 5th or 6th grade, this is a fun book for that. But honestly, if you're a little older, maybe not the best book for you unless you do enjoy books for kids. But I just remember this being, it was a fun book. At my middle school, we actually had this really fun program where we got to use iPads and the iMovie app to create iMovies based off of books we read. And this is one of the ones I did it off of. One of my greatest regrets is that I had to get to save this because I remember the iMovie I made for it was just a lot of fun. But it's all just there in my memory, so I barely remember what I did for it, but I just remember it was a lot of fun. And as like I said, I don't remember too much about the plot of it. I remember it's about this kid who goes to like this magical land, but I'm also not going to be going into direct plot points in case you do get to read these, so I don't ruin them for you. And also, so I'm not helping you do your homework. So if you're hoping for that, I wish you the best of luck on reading it or finding those other places where you could actually get those summaries because even if I did want to help you, I'd be no help since I barely remember what happened during this. Another fun one was the book Hatchet. And this was also sixth grade, but honestly, it was a really enjoyable book about survival. The main story about it was a kid who gets trapped in the middle of the wilderness in a plane crash, and all he has to survive is his hatchet that was given to him by either his mother when he was going to visit his father, or his father when he was going to visit his mother because his parents were divorced. But it's honestly a fun and thrilling book. It is definitely if you do have an option to read it for school, you could read it, but it's something else again I'm not gonna check out on my own, but was still enjoyable enough to read during school. Another book I really enjoyed was whenever during eighth grade, which was House of the Scorpion. And more or less, this is like a PG version of The Godfather in a like dystopian era. So honestly, it was a really fun and unique book. I remember I enjoyed it enough to check out its sequel, which I just got from the library when I was in eighth grade. I don't really remember too much about the sequel. I don't think it was as good as the first one, but it's sort of set in like a dystopian future where the main character is like a clone created by like a drug lord who is raising him as his son and heir, and he wants to get out of this life. So yeah, honestly, I just remember some fun stuff about this. It also has a pretty dark ending for his family, but this is a book I really haven't thought about this in forever. I probably will never also check this one out again also. But if you do have a chance to read it, it is a pretty fun and entertaining book. Another book I really enjoyed was a seventh grade book. This was actually a book that I chose to read with some other people who wanted to read it, but I also had the chance to read it in my junior year of high school, which is why I'm counting it because technically this was a self-selected book, was one that others picked, which was The Road. And I have great memories of this book, not just for the fact that it was a pretty entertaining post-apocalyptic story, but also probably was a little above our, just a little above our age range, which, as I said, it was offered as an option during my junior year of high school when I read this during seventh grade. But my most memorable story from this is a completely insane iMovie we got to make off of this because nobody else read this book. None of the teachers knew the plot, so it was just completely insane and stupid. There was no one that could really fact check us because the teachers weren't going to do enough effort to look up the plot of it because it was a book that was selected by me and some other people. But I still have that iMovie today. I'll enjoy rewatching it because it's just complete insanity what we did. Never watched the actual movie of this, but to my seventh grade teacher, we did not do anything close to related to what the book was about. It was very vaguely based off of it, with just a bunch of like dumb and stupid memes tossed in, which nearly won us Best Film of our mini Academy Awards for this. Definitely felt robbed during that, but I don't remember which one we won, but I remember that we should have won because everyone loved ours. But yeah, just to my seventh grade teachers, we completely like vaguely adapted that book, and it'd be like if someone actually watched that seriously, they would, and they read the book, they'd be like, "What have you even done?" And this movie, if it was made into like an actual movie, people who would have actually, liked the book would have hated it. But it was just a lot of fun to make, so I have great memories of this. I may eventually check it out again. The last book I want to mention from my middle school era is a book they probably shouldn't have had us read in middle school because of just how terrible things that happen in it are. It is still an incredible book for what it does, and that is Night. This is the story of Elie Wiesel, who is a Holocaust survivor, and how he survived through those horrendous events. What happens here is not really child friendly at all. It is, even though it does happen to him when he is a child. But I think everyone should read either this book or a book like it just to know how terrible humanity can be and to make sure that mistakes like what happened during the Holocaust never happen again. And there's, while these other books are enjoyable from this is honestly just a fun story or book I really enjoyed. This is a book that you don't really enjoy anything that happens in it. It is just truly disgusting to see what some people have are capable of. But since this is all what truly happened, and it's something that is essential to make sure that people will never commit atrocities like this again, is something that everyone probably should read. And while this book isn't one that they have to read, it's something like it is at least something well. I don't know what other books like it are, since there's stuff like Anne Frank's Diary, but that was from what I remember. I haven't actually read it, but that's more about her hiding from the Nazis over her actually being in concentration camps or anything. So that's completely different than this, just to know truly how terrible things were. And is something honestly I think probably, even if you're in those grades, probably shouldn't be reading because it's something where you should be a lot more older and mature than like a 12, 13-year old reading this. But now it's time to move on to my high school era, and everything that I've read is specifically from my junior year of high school. And the first book I read that year was honestly another one I honestly will want to check out again because it is honestly just a really well written book, which is Stephen King's Rita Hayworth and the Shawshank Redemption, which was adapted into the movie The Shawshank Redemption. And the entire Rita Hayworth thing is about a poster, but they didn't want to confuse people and think that Rita Hayworth, who I think was even dead when this movie came out, was going to be in the movie. But this is honestly was just a really great book. We also got to watch the movie in class, and I really enjoyed it. It is obviously from my junior year of high school, as I said, which is my favorite year of English or reading or whatever your equivalent to being called is class. And this was honestly a really entertaining book that I got to read during it. But there's one more book in there that I got to read that was even more entertaining, and one I might be using my next Audible credit next month to get because I do want to check this one out again. And that book is Ready Player One, and this is one of those where we got to have a bunch of choices of books, and we actually had a project after it similar to my time in middle school where we got to make a trailer for the movie. With this one, I was a lot more advanced into different filmmaking techniques and was in a separate film class, so I was able to use some decent film equipment for it. I was able to use like green screens and some other stuff to make a really fun and entertaining trailer. And I'm not going to be, well, for these, although I do have these, I will probably never publicly share them because I would have to track down people that I went to high school with and middle school, and it would be a massive pain in the butt to do that. And there's no guarantee I'm ever gonna find those people and actually get the permission. So while it'll be really complicated, I'll probably never actually do that, and I'll only be keeping them for my personal viewing pleasure. But just going back to this book, Steven Spielberg made a film about it like a few years later, which had some really fun cameos, but this book was a lot more entertaining than the movie. Rare when, of course, Spielberg is involved, but I think that the book was honestly a lot better. And it also has a really special thing where it got me introduced to Monty Python, which is an entire giant segment of the book where I believe it was the second trial instead of whatever was in the movie was them actually having to recreate the entirety of Monty Python, essentially memorizing the script, and it was just it just introduced me to it. Our teacher told us about it. I was like, yeah, I think you should check this movie out. I watched it on Netflix, and I've now watched a movie at least once a year, maybe twice, because it is such a ridiculously fun movie. Can't remember if I did a review of that or not. I'm pretty sure I did. If not, I'll rewatch the movie again soon just so I could do a review for it. But yeah, honestly, this book is just a lot of fun, a lot of stuff that connects to pop culture, but also setting it in a little more slightly dystopian future because that was the entire theme for these books where there are different books set in sort of like post-apocalyptic or kind of dystopian futures, and which is why I'm including The Road here because it was an option there, even though it's just technically a book that we chose to do independently in eighth grade. Since I had the option for it here, it was, and also it wasn't a book that I picked. I just thought it was the most interesting book of them. That's the reason I did it here, and I'm glad I did that in eighth grade. So I've had a chance to read both of these books. My eighth and final one is the only book that I've actually read before I read it in a class, which is a college level English 102 course where I got to read Alan Moore's Watchmen. This is one of the most famous comics to ever exist, between that and The Dark Knight Returns. And I already read this before I ever went to that class. This is the only time for, a class where I ever had that, but also I already owned the book, so I didn't have to buy it. And it was something I did not mind keeping. This is honestly just such a just fun, intriguing book, and it's a great mystery. There's a 2 or 3 part animated movie. I still need to pick up part one. Not sure if it's out on Blu-ray yet, but I've been waiting for that. It was also made into an adaptation by Zack Snyder, and a sequel series was made by HBO. I know I reviewed at least a few of the versions of it. I can't remember if I did one of Snyder's movie, but I think I did one of the graphic novel shortly after I finished it for that English 102 course, and of the Watchmen sequel show. Can't remember if I did one for the Snyder film though. But yeah, honestly, this is one where I already own this book and I'll definitely check it out again. But yeah, honestly, it's a really entertaining book, great mystery, and highly recommend you check this one out. So yeah, honestly, those are all just great books. And if you're, no matter what level of school you're in, I have at least a glimmer of hope. Obviously, as you get into way higher levels of education, you get into less and less books that you'd probably want to read on your own unless you're really part of that field. So, yeah, honestly, I want to know what you think. What are some good books that you've read? Have you read any of these while you were in school, or have you read any ones that are also great? Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you in the next episode of Legends and Theories. Thank you for watching this episode of Legends and Theories. Please subscribe, like the video, share the video, leave a comment, check out the video on screen, and may the Force be with you.